Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Whiners book club. We are doing a live discussion of The Swallows by Lisa Lutz. This is a bit late. This was the pick that we had for last month, which was my month, but we shifted it over, and unfortunately, due to Mother's Day happening and scheduling conflicts, it got pushed this far back. So here we are. But I'm very excited. We are discussing this book. This was my pick, so that's why we're on my channel. But I have a significant number of the winners here, not quite everybody, but we do have one of the winners in the chat right now and everybody else on screen. So do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and talk about maybe just like your star rating for the book before we get into actually like the plot, the details, how we feel about everything?
Okay. Hello, I'm Darian from Darian Reads, and I gave the book 5 stars.
Sweet.
I'm Sasha from The Redhead Reader, and I gave this 4.5 stars.
Nice.
And
3
I'm
for 3.
Amanda from Ginger Snap Reads, and I gave it 1 star.
That's unbelievable.
For why?
And it's
Okay,
not even because Rachel hates everything I read. It's really because I actually wanted to give it, I was like, okay, I'll give it 2. But then as I went on and more blowjobs were mentioned, I was like, no, I gotta go with a 1. I gotta go with a 1.
Oh my god.
Sweet. Okay. Well, if anybody wants to share their rating in the live chat, or if you're watching this later and you want to comment your rating, let us know how you felt about the book. But I think maybe we should just talk about the general premise of the story, and then we'll.
Give it, Rachel?
What?
What did you give it?
Oh, I gave it 5 stars. It's my new favorite book of 2021. So. Sweet. But we do have some comments. Okay. Hello. This is Mick. This is our other whiner who unfortunately could not make it tonight to the stream, but we're very happy to have her in the comments. Hi, Lisa. Lisa also read The Swallows, so I'm very excited about that. Ha ha ha. I agree. I gave it 4 stars. Another 4 stars. Awesome.
Yes.
Mick, let us know what you rated it, and let's just talk, I guess, about like the general premise before we get into like major spoilers, but we'll probably just do a brief recap, and then if you don't want to hear anything else about it, then you may want to come back after you've read the book. But essentially, this is a story about a new faculty member who ends up being the creative writing instructor at this high school prep boarding school called Stonebridge, and she arrives and poses an anonymous Q&A to her students so that way they can kind of reveal little things about themselves without really claiming their identities. And using that, she sort of realizes that there's a lot going on at the school that is relatively sinister. And she also realizes it might be a bigger conspiracy than something contained just within the student board, the student class, I can't talk today, within the class of students. So maybe the teachers are involved also. So she begins to receive threatening notes and realizes that there's a lot more going on, and incidentally kind of sparks a gender war as the boys and girls in the class are fractured due to this thing called the Darkroom, which is a private chat that only the boys are allowed in. And as the girls find out about it, they get pretty mad for a pretty good reason. So I guess that's like the most spoilery-free thing I can say. And I would say that there are also trigger warnings for sexual assault, pedophilia, and suicide. Do you guys think I'm missing any, or is that like the majority of them, I think?
I wrote them down. 1 second.
Okay.
I think that's what I wrote in my review, so.
I've been creating pages on booktriggerwarnings.com because it's fun.
Because Sasha's just a queen, so.
So there's bullying, cheating, mention of drugs, death, misogyny, obviously.
Yeah.
Sexual abuse, and I also put slut shaming.
Okay. So yes, if you don't feel comfortable with any of those things, then you might want to skip this book. But if you're okay with it, then I would personally recommend it. But I know not everybody feels that way. So we should probably start talking about more of the spoilery stuff. So, also Mick gave it a 4. Okay, interesting. Literally the opposite of the lore show, but we'll see. Sarah said, haven't read, but here for support. Thank you, Sarah. We're about to go spoil the book now, so just saying. Also, Michael's here. Relatively sinister. So what are our thoughts on the book? What were positives, negatives? We can get into like spoilery stuff if we want to. I'll just say also, I felt like the vibes were immaculate in this book. Like, right? Major, like, dark academia, like, fantastic vibes. The fact that she lives in a cottage, like, away from the school, it was perfect. It was literally perfect. And also, this was the first time I've done this, but I started listening to those dark academia playlists while I was reading this book. And then, like, my brain just had, like, this Pavlovian connection where every time I read it, I was like, where is my dark academia playlist? I can't read this without my playlist. It took me so long to, like, finally read it, but then at a certain point, I just couldn't stop reading it, and I just went all the way through it. But immaculate vibes for me. Remy, how did you like the book?
Don't read this, Remy.
I will say that the writing was interesting, but I don't think I like dark academia. I think like I have confirmed. I hate high school settings with dark academia, or like I think I hate dark academia.
Okay. Wait, did you read Ninth House?
I DNF'd Ninth House.
Okay, so that makes sense. Because I think, like, Ninth House, Secret History, which I know you hated, and this are, like, the only
We Were
ones.
Villains, which is another dark academia.
Okay, alright, yeah. Because I think those are the only ones I really know of that are, like, the traditional kind of, like, dark academia staples that I always hear about on BookTube. And then this one came along and I was like, oh, I didn't know this was dark academia. But, yeah, I think it's one of those things, like, you either, like, really, really love it, or it's like, it's really not your thing, you know? So, fair enough. And also it sucks because it's literally what the entire book is about, so.
Yeah, it was like the high school thing. It just put me back into that setting where girls are like, I hated high school. So, like, being in that setting again where girls are like, well, if you enjoy that, that's weird. Oh, I just can't. No thanks. I don't like the slut shaming and all that bullshit.
Yeah, I mean,
fair enough.
Understandable.
Also, yes, I think. I'm pretty sure. This has broken the curse for me, but it has started a separate curse for Manda.
Listen,
I hope
we're not starting
not.
off first. We're starting off great with this month.
This month, yes.
Starting now.
My Remy heard. I thought you were
Oh
talking.
my
You have a
God.
Remy?
How cute!
Love
Oh wait, yes, I forgot. Yes, your dog is also named Remy. I forgot.
Remy twins.
Oh my God, double Remy. And okay, so Mick has loved all of those books because I know Mick loved Ninth House. I was not really a fan of Ninth House. I know Darian was also not really a fan of Ninth House, but we also love those like dark academia vibes. So
yeah,
you know.
I was gonna say, like, I don't know if people will agree with me, but while I was reading this, I kept thinking of The Secret History. Like, it kept reminding me of it, and
Yeah,
I was
me too.
like, I love these.
Well, see, but that's what's so interesting because like Darian gave both Secret History and Swallows high ratings. Manda gave both Secret History and Swallows low ratings, but Sasha gave like opposite ratings for the two. So now it's like, wow, not a monolith. Who would have thought? Incredible. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on maybe some negatives. Anything that you were like, oh, I actually kind of hate this, which is fine because there were plenty of things in this book that were not great, like perhaps Mr. Ford, perhaps.
Oh God, yeah.
He was so creepy. He stressed me out so much.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I even have any negatives on like the quality of the book, but like just all of the male characters except for like maybe 2 people were just trash. Like,
Mhm.
oh my god. Yeah.
And like also people that I thought were like, yeah, you're bad, but you're probably not like the worst one. And I was like, maybe he's fine. And he was like the worst one. He was the worst one. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Who knew?
Yeah.
I definitely think that like being in the heads of some of like the boys that were like not really most offensive of everybody here was like helpful to humanize them, especially because they had their own flaws and they were kind of like, am I really doing this because I'm a good person, or is it because I like this person, or like what am I doing? But it made them much more sympathetic. But I also definitely feel like they were just 100% the most sympathetic of the boys in the entire story, because everybody else would have been like, oh, you're a piece of shit. And like being in Ford's head told us that too, because he was also a total piece of shit, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I was glad I kind of got a warning from you guys, because I know you guys didn't really like Ford. And I was like pretty early in the book when you guys had told me that. So as I kept reading, I was like, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, at first I was like, I don't know, he seems okay. And then I was like, no.
And then Priscilla or whatever her name was at the door.
Oh my god, yeah.
Prim.
Wait, wasn't it Rachel Rose?
I thought it was
Priscilla.
No, but
because
the
Rachel.
teacher, I think.
Oh, Martha Prim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prim.
Yeah. Prim was also a piece of shit. I did not like her at all. She was terrible.
There were a lot of terrible people.
Yeah, there were a lot of terrible people. But I feel like it's also kind of like Secret History-ish in that way, where you put a bunch of terrible people together.
Yes.
But the difference was like Secret History was just like 100% bad people. And in this one it was kind of like a mix of the two, or like some morally gray people in the mix there. And then things kind of ended up the way that they did. But yes, do we... Sasha? Hello?
Okay. So in The Swallows, I feel like the characters were challenging how, like, those bad people. Like, there was... In The Secret History, everybody was bad. There were no challenges. Everyone was bad. Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, like, The Swallows is definitely a book that really, really surprised me, because I was just like, I was really going into this with low hopes, because I really didn't like The Secret History. I knew it was Dark Academia, but it really reminds me of my favorite book of last year. And so, but like less stressful, or more stressful.
Wait, which one's more stressful?
The Swallows. The Swallows had the whole blowjob thing, and I was just like, wow, this is a lot. But in the Nowhere Girls, it was more like, oh, we just don't like this, so let's get together, and yeah. And I like that. So I think I don't know, maybe that's why I liked it, but like, I don't know. The comparisons to Secret History I get, but they make me sad.
On the spectrum of like, this is all Dark Academia, just The Secret History is all the way at the bottom of the barrel for Sasha. But
I mean, I did feel like The Secret History had a little more to offer in terms of characters, though, because oh my gosh, Remy, because I just think that they were more distinctive. Like, at least I remember the twins, and I remember Bunny, very distinctive personalities. Whereas this book, I feel like the point of views were so bad. Like, they weren't distinctive. I feel like I could have read any of the chapters and thought it was any of the characters.
I think they were so distinctive. Like, I could always tell which chapter we were on.
They had no, like, it was very flat.
Wait, but also, didn't you listen to the audiobook? I thought they had different narrators for every chapter, for every person.
But the thing
it didn't matter.
Every character didn't have any density. It was just like,
okay.
Whenever I got to a chapter, I was like, oh my god, can we please skip all this bullshit about this whiny ass guy that thinks he's not involved because he just made the framework.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Norman was just like, listen, I'm not a bad guy. I just made the entire website that it's all hosted on. But don't worry about it. I'm not a bad guy. And I was like, Norman, no.
At least he helped in the end.
In the end. I mean, I also, like, so later on in the book, I feel like he sort of realizes, like, oh, maybe I am like incredibly responsible for this. So I liked the fact that he kind of owned up to that and was like, Mel, this is literally how you crack the code, get in the room. Like, just do it. Get in the room. Like, I don't know how much more clear I can be. But then by the end, when they were like, they were going to beat him up, then he was like, okay, let him beat me up. And I was like, okay, like, because that's you actually being a good guy because you're taking one for the team instead of revealing what happened. Of course, this, other things happened as well, but like, he somewhat was redeemed, at least for me. Because he definitely doesn't start out as like the best person, but he also knows he's like a coward at the beginning. So he has that growth. Although I also think that like Jonah is a pretty interesting character, being that he definitely like has feelings for Gemma, and he has a lot of those different pressures of being like part of the 10, but also not really like caring about any of that stuff, but also not doing anything about it. So somewhat being like that bystander who's also just trying to survive, which I think is also like a really big part of high school that for some people is like a little too real. Cause like for sure in my high school, a lot of stuff was like eat or be eaten in a way. So I can understand the whole like literally like just let it go. But like in my high school, we didn't have a blowjob contest. So it was mostly just like, if you like these people, then just hang out with those people instead of those people. And that was literally it. And in this one, it's sort of like every time anyone did anything about it, they like disappeared, which is just so sinister and so messed up.
We had something similar. I think that's part of the reason. I think that's part of the reason why I hated it so much was because we had something similar. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was like trading cards of nudes.
Oh my god.
So, like,
of people?
So like what so a team of like the football team would say like, oh, I have Jessica. I'll trade you for Lauren. And then they would rate you and stuff. And then a bunch
Amanda,
of
you lived through the literal swallows. You lived through like the actual real life version of this book.
Yeah, so all the girls got expelled that were involved. And then the
Why
guys
the girls?
had, like, no flack basically. Because the girls were the ones taking the pick. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was real life. And yeah, it was like a scandal. It was like on the news and shit.
Awful.
Amanda. Oh my god.
So I was like, this is not for me.
That's I mean, literally that's like 100% valid.
And also like the girls, like they would like flaunt around that they're like the best. And like
It's literally the
they
swallows.
make fun of the other girls' pictures. Oh yeah, it was just like this.
Oh my god.
Except like not that extensive. Like a blowjob.
That is
part.
crazy.
Yeah,
Michael has all the facts.
There was even more, but yeah, I hated high school.
Oh my god, Amanda, you could write like 5 different books about each of the various different scandals at your school.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, but that was Remy was.
I'm sorry, his face was just there.
He wants my dinner.
Well, I don't think this recommendation is necessarily for Amanda because I know you don't like Dark Academia, but Sarah said that special topics in Calamity Physics is Dark Academia and a good old time. So keep it in mind. Amanda, maybe skip that one because it's Dark Academia. But just catching up with some comments while I'm processing what you just said, because what the fuck? It's so messed up.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Just want to write this down for later. Okay, great. Yes, we also hate that man. And yes, okay. I honestly didn't know what this was going to be picking it up. I just knew that there was something with a school and a gender war, and I was interested in it. So I was like, cool. So I was very surprised by like the mystery vibes, the fact she was getting like threatening notes, the fact that it was like Dark Academia and stuff. Michael says, from everything I've heard, Mr. Ford seems to be a negative for both people who like the book and don't like the book. Yeah. I mean, he's a piece of shit, so for sure.
If you like Mr. Ford, then
maybe
I would be concerned.
maybe receive help immediately.
Yeah.
Ouch, May, ouch. I mean, no offense, Michael. Don't worry, Michael. Not all men. Not all men. Okay,
No.
but
Just a lot of them.
just many of them. What did we think about the? There's a person who is sort of getting back at the boys. So there's like the showers turning like really, really cold or really, really hot, and sometimes random stuff will happen. So like all the boys in the Dickinson's house will get poison ivy or lice. What do we think of that?
Love it. 10
Love
out of
it.
10. I didn't even suspect her name's Lenny, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even suspect her, and then when she revealed it was her, I was like, "Oh my god, yes, queen, love
Yes.
you." Yes,
I loved Linny because Linny was like trying so hard to be part of the fight, and she was constantly told like, "No, stay out of it." So she like found her own way of revenge. That was like so much more direct, and it was so much less about like, let's think long game strategy. It was like, I'm gonna go burn them in the showers and give them poison ivy and lice, and it was like nice, like good.
Love her.
She was great, and like I also feel like the way it was revealed was almost like very heavy-handed for her to be like, go to my room and feed my fish because you haven't figured it out yet. And then she was like, oh, it's you. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I loved her.
But she was great. Yeah. And I also loved that like she was just like a very weird soul. Like she was like, oh, I don't want to do this for PE, so I figured if I just go in the back and I like try to fish in the bog, then I could do that for credit. And he was like, you can't do that for credit. And she was like, but what if I did? And also, what if I just chop down this tree? And then I loved how that became a symbol for everything, like the axe tattoos.
Yes, and there was like a picture, I think, of like all the chopped down trees or something. Someone drew, like, a diagram of the trees. Oh,
I think it was Linny who drew that and gave it to Keith.
Yeah,
I think. And it was like a picture, and it showed all the girls' trees, like each one that they had each cut down. And then in the end, then Ms. Whitt also cut down a tree, I think in like Keith's backyard, and was like, oh yeah, I get it now. Like, this is very satisfying. And I also loved Whitt's mom, Nastia.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she was just so like, I don't give a shit about anything, just go do the thing. So when they were like, here's what's going on, she's like, oh, why don't you like have like worst blowjob ever contest? And I was like, okay, I like the way you're thinking. And then also when, they were so upset, she handed her an axe and was like, go chop that tree down so that you don't kill somebody else. And when you're done, then you won't feel so angry anymore. And it was so true. So great.
Yeah.
But what about how the dad is always talked about, but he had no real plot device? Like the dad of Miss Whitt. Mm-hmm. Like always talking about how he's an author and a piece of shit, but then like never had really anything endgame.
I mean, I think she ended up being a ghostwriter for him because he kind of became successful, and then he had to like crank out a book per year, and he was like, I can't keep up with that. But really, it was really Ms. Whitt who was kind of like writing a lot of the plots for him and like helping him edit all of his books, and he was sort of getting a lot of the credit for it anyway. But she was just sort of like, this is the way it works, is that I come up with plots, but also it's really sort of her mom coming up with plots. Because at the end, when they did like a birthday exchange or something like that, then he gave her like a bunch of cash and she gave him a box full of different plots. And she was like, which one didn't my mom write? So it was really sort of like facilitating something between the two, which seems to have somewhat worked out by the end because she was getting paid. So she was like, it's fine, which is an interesting enough marriage. But I also kind of feel like some of the things in the book weren't like they weren't really like supposed to wrap up to eat like perfectly. Exactly. Like even the stuff with like Gemma and the dean and him like adopting her, which was really sweet. But like you sort of knew that they weren't like 100% on the same page, but it was like good enough for the both of them. And then by the end, when he was like, oh, you didn't really shave your head to get rid of lice, did you? And she was like, yeah, no, I didn't. I was just like, oh,
shave their heads. I love that.
Yes.
I just love all the women. I love them. Well, not all the women, but most of them.
But most of the women. I didn't mean a bad character that you shouldn't like. I mean, everyone seems to have counted Ford's inclusion against the book. I'm not sure how to articulate what I'm trying to say. Also, I hate men. Okay. Thank you, Michael.
No.
Good morning.
Good
Yes,
morning.
okay.
What a way to start your morning.
What did you guys think about, I guess, like, the way that the Darkroom operated in general? Like, the fact that it exists is very fucked up, but the way that it worked was, like, you know, it was, like, a very simple code, I guess you could say, because they were, like, we couldn't do anything more complicated than this because they just wouldn't get it. But it was also, like, you know, like, it was used so that way you could identify whoever it was that you were talking about, and it was like to, you know, keep some kind of anonymity. But at the same time, I don't remember who it was, but one of the girls was saying, like, do they even see us as human anymore? And that was, like, such a, like, huge thing, because it was sort of like everything is literally just objectification at this point, and it has nothing to do with anybody as a person. And most of the girls were led on with the belief that they were dating somebody that they were really in love with, or someone that really liked them back, or whatever it was. And they, even if it was just a fling, they had no idea this was happening to them. So, like, when that revolution takes place, it's a big deal. But right before it happens, when kind of like the main group of girls are just figuring out, what do we do with this? Then I feel like that was also, like, a really big turning point to realize that, like, this is something that really needs to happen. It's not good enough to just say, like, make them apologize and then it's over, but to say, like, you kind of really have to pay for what you've done.
Yeah. I mean, imagine caring so much about that to make, like, a whole, not website, but, like...
I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, like, even if I were that bad of a person, I'm simply too lazy to do something like that, so...
Yeah.
It just seemed, like, it low-key seemed, like, unrealistic for, like, high school boys. Because if you've ever met a high school boy, like, they're low-key the laziest people. And I'm sorry it's a high school boy, but, like, most high schoolers
Literally.
are very lazy, but, like, there's a whole other level of high school boys.
Yeah.
And I was just like, the dedication, commitment, that to this is just like, who why? Who has the time between homework and extracurricular?
Who has the time?
They can be dedicated to what they want to be dedicated to.
True.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't think homework is their priority. That's what they want to say.
Also, given that, like, a lot of their classes were just like, just work on your thing during class, and they would just, like, text the whole class, and it was like, okay.
It didn't really seem like a school, and more like a recreation center where everybody kind of hung out and lived.
Yeah,
it was very, like, more college like, I would say, because high school is so, for me, high school was, like, incredibly stressful, and college was stressful in a different way, but it was very, like, chill in a lot of, like, the settings. Like, you could just hang out even in class. You didn't really have to, like, take notes rigorously all the time, so you kind of could, like, text all the time, and sometimes you have, like, a quiet period or whatever. So yes, I do feel like sometimes I read stories and I kind of wish that they took place in college, but in this case I feel like I was more okay with it knowing it was, like, an isolated boarding school setting, because half the time we were also in adults' heads, so I felt like it kind of made up for, like, that gap in what I wanted for maturity.
Yeah.
And, like, definitely this being, like, a much more, like, sinister story, because, like, even outside of the idea of, like, well, we haven't said it out loud yet, but this is a story about rating girls based on how good they can give you a blowjob, kind of. So, like that's one of the major things. But then I think that when things, like, escalate and get worse and worse and worse, then you realize that things are also, like, not even as simple as all that, because then it leads into the whole, like, gathering information on different people, and then the teachers being involved. And, like, just altogether the idea that, like, teachers in the past have tried to say something about this, and then all of a sudden they found, like, weed in their apartment, and then they had to, like, leave school, or they were accused of doing something and they had to leave school, is, like, a whole other level of messed up to do that to a person, but also to have the means to do that to a person on any given day. And it was just like, you know, oh, we'll all back up this story that that's what happened. So it was, like, very, like, threatening in that way. It was very scary to think that you'd be in that situation. And I feel like most readers sympathize with Whitt and like the fact that she's trying to like figure this whole thing out. And even when she goes into the bar and she meets with the other teachers and she's like, what's like the hierarchy here, what's going on, they kind of like know the lay of the land. But as she keeps talking to them, they're like, oh yeah, we know about the Darkroom, oh yeah, we know about the whole like blowjob contest, I didn't know there was a name for it. And it's like, how do you know about this and you're totally okay with it? And they're like, yeah, because that's, you know, if you say anything you disappear. And it's like, the fuck?
Yeah. Like, why would you want to keep working there?
Yeah, and then a lot of people were like, this place is home. And I was like, you know what's going on here, though, right? Like, bro.
I found it unreasonably vulgar. Like,
it was very, like,
I was just like, every time I would just, like, flinch. Like, oh my god. Like, do we have to talk like this? Like, I
would say it's, like, very abrupt, yeah.
Books. Like, you know, I'm always reading weird shit. But like I'm like so uncomfortable by this. Like I wrote notes down, and I'm pretty sure a bunch of times I wrote disgusting. Like because
I mean like they're definitely not supposed to be. Yeah, I mean like they're definitely not things that are supposed to be sexy whatsoever. They're always used.
But I was like, why is it so vulgar?
Right, but I think like sort of the. I don't know. I think sort of the point of it was to like show how gross it was, because as a reader you're supposed to feel disgusted with the contest, but also the fact that like this is so pervasive across the entire culture of the campus that everybody knows about it, and this is just common for all of the students, for these different things, for them to like walk in and see something or to hear about something and for them to be like, that's disgusting, but that's the way it is. And like I'm not always like the biggest fan of like a book making me feel the way the character does when it's like disgust, because then I'm just disgusted. But this definitely was like one of those things that was very jarring, because I would like read something like this and I'd be like, oh, everything's fine, and then I would get like right there and it would be like totally gross whatever was going on, and it would be like 3 sentences and you were like, okay, I can't believe I read this entire page, didn't suspect anything, and then bam, like gross. But like that would happen so often, and I think in a way it's somewhat like a parallel for what those characters were feeling at the time.
Yeah, like I guess it was like a writing choice, but for me, I'm just not interested in reading it.
Fair enough.
That's valid.
What did you guys think of like, I guess like the second plot twist, or like the bigger plot twist after all the stuff with Dulcina or whatever, like what Dulcina really was like named after?
Oh, that was.
Oh,
yeah.
I guess it's like almost a month ago now.
Oh.
Yeah, that was.
Well, like when Whit found like what's his face and what's her face.
I was literally like sitting right here reading this last night and just like, like just,
yeah, I definitely gasped out loud.
I did.
Oh my god.
I was so shocked because I knew there was something up with Adam, and like even in the beginning when she does like her seating chart, so she has something for Adam and she says like anybody who wears a bow tie is either good or evil, right?
Oh my god.
And so I was like, oh, he's like okay, I guess. I feel like he has more going on, but I guess he's not like the worst of the guys, as I kept reading, because I was like, Jack is pretty messed up. I'm pretty sure he's a pedophile. And eventually they were like, yeah, he was at a camp as a camp counselor, and then 11 and 12-year-olds said that he committed like sexual assault on them, and then eventually the charges went away, and I was like, okay, so we do that one. But then the fact Adam was like gathering evidence, I was like, okay, that looks pretty bad. But then when like the big like that happened, then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And it was just so fucked up the way that he like called Whit pretending to be Claude, like with the phone, just to be like, oh, I need you to see something. And it was just like, okay.
Oh my god. Honestly, thank God he did. Like, I was so happy. I was like, okay, good. Like, get around.
I mean, that was another like shocking moment for me, because then when they were like, you know, we did this thing, we ran away, we didn't know the boys were locked in the lounge. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
okay.
Yeah.
And just like everything from there, like I kept rereading it because I kind of like couldn't believe they were really gonna do that, I guess. And as we kept going, and they were basically just like, yeah, like some people got out alive, but then you also hear that like the 3 boys that got out were like, oh, Adam got out already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they basically either killed him or they left him to die.
And they also said, I think near the beginning of the book, like Miss Whitt said something about how, like, because they were, the way they narrated it was that like the events had already happened, and so she said something about like, I never would have taken this job if I knew people were gonna die or something like that.
Oh yeah, yes.
Gonna die. Okay, I'm glad.
I literally forgot about that until like the moment you just said it. I literally forgot that she said that so early on because I was like, someone's gonna die, and I didn't read this book for a really long time until we were like, the show's gonna happen soon. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
But like definitely like towards the end, then Whit kept saying stuff that was like, oh, I thought nothing could get worse, but I was so naive back then. And I was like, how is it gonna get worse? Like everything's already pretty bad. And then like there was a fire, and I was like, that's bad. And then like the way that he got like removed from the school.
Yeah, I just remembered something.
So
one moment. I remember because there were like, because I read it on my Kindle, so there were some quotes that I highlighted, and then when I was done, I went back to look at them, and I saw a foreshadowing moment. 1 second, let me find it. Oh yeah, like at one point, I think it was Kate who was talking, and she was like, sometimes when I want to feel better, I imagine burning this place to the ground, and I'm like,
yeah.
That's what happens.
I think I read the last like, I want to say like 250 pages or something, like basically in one sitting. So as like stuff happened, I was like, aha.
Yeah.
Hey, it just happened. Okay. Like, so it was like good foreshadowing for sure. But as like certain things like happened, I was kind of like, I'm pretty sure this is foreshadowing for something that's about to happen in 30 pages. And then it would happen. And I was like, okay, good. Like, yeah, I don't know. Cause I don't feel like this is like extremely highbrow literature that it's like really, really hard to understand what's going on. But I do feel like it does have like some of those little things that like definitely surprise you as you keep reading because you don't know how dark it really could be. And then other things that seem like a little ridiculous and kind of like played up a little bit beyond logic, but it sort of works for the sort of like overall story that it's trying to tell. But in preparation for the show, I also looked up some 2-star reviews of this book because I saw some people didn't like it, and I was very personally surprised, but I was like, it could happen. So I was like very curious, somewhat in the tradition of what we did with Conviction live show.
Iconic.
About opposite reviews. Oh no, Amanda. Amanda, no. Okay.
I just thought of something that I want to bring up after.
Yes, okay. No, you feel free, bring it up now while we wait for Amanda to return.
Okay.
Bring up Goodreads.
I need to talk about when Norman was high and he just wanted his mashed potatoes, but he couldn't find his mashed potatoes. That was so funny. I could not laughing at that whole part. I just needed to bring that up.
Well, it was that, and then like the next chapter, Whit was like, there was an endless pile of mashed potatoes. So it was like he just literally couldn't find it.
Oh my god!
Wait, I want to hear these reviews.
Okay, no, we're gonna do the reviews in a second. It was just the mashed potato bit. Before we get into reviews, let me briefly get into the comments for a second. I don't think this book would work in a college setting.
Yeah, no.
That's probably true. I just feel like college makes sense for like the boarding school thing, but you're probably right. I don't feel like it would work in a college setting. What is the weirdest book you've ever read? All right.
I don't know.
For the record, it doesn't work for me personally, but I mean in a broader sense. Okay. Are we about to stumble across another Mackenzie Lee review?
Imagine.
Perhaps.
no.
I'm ready. So we're gonna I'm gonna share my screen and we can take a look at some Goodreads reviews and just see what people think. I'm very interested to see. Okay. Can you guys see? Okay. Should I enlarge?
Yes. in
Is this
hand.
good?
Blind.
Okay, I'm gonna skip my review. Oh, I found a review from Amanda.
Oh, Amanda.
But let's look for some strangers' reviews. And I'm not doing this to out anybody, and anyone who's watching this, please don't bully any of these people unless they're Mackenzie Lee. That is fine. Okay, so this person says, "Dang it, don't like this." So some people do like her other books, like the Spellman Files. Please take this with a grain of salt and know full well that I could be the outlier here due to the fact that I know she can write the heck out of a story. So I think some of her other books are very different, and this one seemed too predictable, and it was underwhelming and unsatisfying. There are a lot of characters which were very difficult to keep track of, which is fair, and some of them shouldn't have been included. Well, okay. I love a good challenge in my reading, but I need it for it to have a purpose and me not just be a plot device to bloat the page count. Okay, fair enough. Fine. This clearly takes place in a fictional universe of boarding schools where we have dropped all pretense that anything in it is real or related to real life. Fair. Okay. 6 adults, 400 students. Yeah, that is a little weird. We've met literally no other teachers, I think.
I didn't even think of that, but it's fine.
We meet 10 students and the rest of them don't exist. Okay. Around a third of the way through, I thought, okay, we're going to get some interesting gender wars here. Maybe this is satire. It could be satire. Nothing in it feels all that satirical, but the lack of realism and the committed to weirdness plot could mean satire. Let's wait for some sharp topical insight. And I waited.
Damn.
It did. Okay. All right. Okay.
Jeez. It's a long review.
Good Lord, did I write this? This seems so... I could do this for hours, but I will not. Okay. The teachers are truly awful for no real purpose, except to maybe remind us that adults are just older teenagers. See, okay, but this was kind of interesting because then we said that somewhere in the book they said that Ford was sort of like a grown-up version of one of those boys. Mm-hmm. That, like, if those boys were allowed to continue doing the things that they did, then they would probably just grow up, do the same things that Ford did, where he was 100% aware of everything going on and how awful it was, and was just like, well, what am I going to do about it? I don't really care. Yeah. And he also used it as the basis of his own book. And it was like, dude.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, it's just a coincidence. I'm like, I don't think so.
She was, because Whitt was like, you literally stole the plot for the story is literally 100% the real life situation of Stonebridge. And he was like, well, maybe a little bit, like, ha ha ha. And it was like, do you understand what that means? Yeah. Sir. At all. Yes. To its credit, this book does have a truly excellent flowchart called the Blow Chart, and they should give it to actual teenagers because it's very good advice. Well, there's one good thing in the book, according to this person, which is nice. Okay, thank you. Yes, okay. So I feel like most of these are like 4-star ratings, some 5-star ratings, and a lot of 2-star ratings also. A 1-star rating. Oh no.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Amanda's like, give it to me, yes.
This is the good
my eyeballs.
Susan says couldn't finish this book. OMG, my eyeballs need a good cleaning. As I struggled to finish this book, I got 60% done and I literally could read no more. I read more about oral sex than I ever wanted and the troubles of high school students. This was set in a high school boarding school where a small band of popular male students set up a secret rating system of the oral sex they receive. They even award a secret trophy for the best accomplishment. There is, of course, a teacher that buys them alcohol and a blind eye from the administration. They humiliate females by releasing naked pictures and forcing several girls to leave the school because they're so ashamed. It's truly awful. The catalyst seems to be the arrival of a new teacher whose father is a semi-well-known author. She joins the girls in uncovering and exposing the plot. I was even more disappointed as I liked this author's Spellman Files series. This was just awful. I have literally nothing good to say about it. Oh, no.
Oh,
but that's everything I liked about it. Oh, all right.
Poor Susan.
We're sorry, Susan.
A potent review.
I think that I also just like I think I like portrayal of men to be decent in my books. Like, I think if there's gonna be sexual assault or if there's gonna be some triggering topics like that, then I need there to be someone in these girls' lives that makes them think differently.
Mhm.
Like, I always want, I don't know, like, I guess I'm like such a romance reader. So I always like there to be like someone helping, or like there's just always negatives in this book. I know like the girl power, but I don't know.
I think Jonah was kind of a good guy, and Norman was to a degree.
Yeah, but he was just like
But
a
Norman also was
standby
like,
person, like just letting things happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would have liked there to be a boy. Why couldn't there have been just one that was decent? You know,
Because
there's
then I don't think he would be at this school.
not just all boys are gonna be this terrible. So I'm
It's okay.
like,
We still have Michael in the chat. Michael, you are the one good boy in the world.
I'm like, you should have had
I
at least one person joining the fight.
The girls'
whatever.
revolution.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That would be pretty interesting. Yeah, because I think this doesn't really leave too much room for anybody who's like really not fitting the exact gender binary of all the gender roles that like really existed in, I think, like 2009, widely known. Like, you know, not to say that those didn't exist, but nobody really talked about them in 2009, or they didn't talk about them positively enough that anyone could really come out, probably. So, I mean, I don't know, was this book written recently?
I think it
Or
was
did
written near Twilight because they had all those Twilight references.
Well, it took
This-
place in 2009, but I think it was written in
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I also did notice a number of Harry Potter references and
Yeah.
Twilight references. So, yes. I feel like she did a decent job of like trying to like wind back the clock to 2009.
Mhm.
And like given that this took place before the terrible scandal of 2020 of J.K. Turfling, I feel like a little bit more forgiving of it, I guess. But it is still like not gonna ever not be cringy to read about, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yes, fair enough. I feel like most of these reviews are similar enough. And like most of these are not too scathing, I think. Okay, so can we talk about revenge? So, some of the girls decided there's a way to go about this, which is to use a very hot pepper and go to town.
Yes.
Truly taking one for the team, I guess I would say. Because that is like a whole other level of committing to acting, I guess, and then doing that as well. And like, as gross as it would be to actually have to do something like that, in a totally twisted way, I almost kind of loved the fact that these girls were like, this is the grossest thing I'm ever gonna have to do, and I hate these people, but I'm gonna go do it for the sake of revenge. And then like, the fact that they all did it at the same time proved that it was like, yeah, we know what's going on, and now we're all gonna get back at you. But of course, that sort of like escalates things further and causes the boys to kidnap Linny.
Oh my god.
And, you know, things sort of just like, again, are just a back and forth, like worse and worse and worse situation. You know? This is about finding a Mackenzie Lee review. I have not found a Mackenzie Lee review. I'm sorry. I have failed you guys. Oh my god, am I grandma? Why can't I find out how to at people?
It's okay.
I think I would genuinely scream. I am also a grandma. Grandmas unite. Girl power. Tattoo some axes. Tattoo some grandmas.
Yes.
My eyeballs need to go cleaning. I thought Norman was irritating. Oh, okay. Let us know. Tell me why.
I mean, that was spicy. Like, I didn't love Norman, but I didn't think
he's
he
like
was...
a pick-me boy.
Oh, what? He's a what?
A pick-me boy?
What's that?
Do you know what a pick me girl is?
No.
Like choose me, pick me.
Oh. Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
he has a backbone, but I just love when he wanted to have
It's just him being high.
I just love that part so much.
But I feel like the difference between a pick me boy and I guess like whatever Norman is that Norman wasn't like commonly saying like, oh, like he would never choose me because I'm so terrible, but like I'm not a good person. Because like pick me people are kind of like searching for compliments. Like, you know, like they're fishing for compliments by putting themselves down, kind of. Or they're like acting like they're better than everybody else. It like sort of depends on, I guess, the type of pick me person that you are. But I don't feel like Norman ever really did that. I feel like he knew that he wasn't like the best person and he kind of knew that he was doing things to help the girls. So like in a way he was kind of like one of the guys that was like joining the revolution, but he wasn't doing it loud and proud the way that they could because he was working from the inside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think if Norman was like, fuck you guys, I'm like done with all this stuff, I think that like the boys would have just found another way to keep doing whatever it was they were doing. And even if they were like, forget the Dolcino Award, forget like rating girls on this thing, I don't think it would have changed too much about the way that they were thinking that they could just use women for whatever they wanted to do. And generally like treating women in that way where it's like, you know, like just generally not seeing somebody who is equal to you as equal to you at a very early stage in life and allowing that to fester, and for like adults not to say anything despite the fact that they know what's going on, for your peers not to say anything despite the fact it's going on, and so on and so forth. It just like insinuates like this terrible thing within society that you're allowed to keep treating people that way and to treat them as unequal. And obviously that transcends gender, and it applies to so many different factors. But I feel like the fact that they were able to somewhat like cause a revolution, other than just being like, screw you guys, we're just not going to have sex with you anymore, but like to really sort of burn the whole place to the ground, and just say like, we can't fix it, so let's just burn it all down and start over. It seems like that's a little bit more powerful, but the way to get there was like small steps and small actions and a lot of planning. So it was sort of like getting all the girls on their side and also having a guy who was on the inside who was willing to help them out, but he still had to somewhat like maintain his cover. And he sort of knew that the guys were a little suspicious of him and they would like excuse him from the room at a lot of the meetings. So he knew like, I can't push this too far because then I'll just kind of like lose all access and they'll just sort of keep being the kind of way that they are and there's nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue he's not exactly like a pick-me boy, but in a way he's sort of like part of the revolution, even if he couldn't 100% fully commit himself to staying out of the 10 in order to accomplish that. You know what I mean? Is that fair?
Yes.
I mean, I also thought he was a pick me boy, so I feel you. I get you.
Lisa said the only thing he did was provide a POV at the end when things got spicy. But other than that, I was like, why am I listening to you? Well,
I mean, he was kind of like our way
The most boring.
to what was going on with the boys. Like,
this reminds me of a post I read a while ago. A guy needs something spicy to give someone oral sex afterward, and it didn't end well. Yeah, that's basically what happens in the story.
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
When they were all in the bathroom, and I was like, ha. Because all their wieners were red and stuff. I was like, that's it.
Okay. See, I was a little worried because, like, as I kept, first of all, I picked this book because the library recommended it to me based on my reading taste. So I literally didn't know what it was about. And I was just like, I never read the books the library recommends. So if I make it a Whiners book, I'll definitely read it. So I did. Then you guys read it. And as I kept reading, I was like, is that why they call it The Swallows?
Yeah.
Oh, I hated
like,
that. I hate that too. I hate everything about it. It's just so bad.
Yeah, I had no idea. And then, like, you messaged the group chat and was like, is that why they call it the swallow? And I just kind of, like, put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, uh-oh.
Well, see, that's what I was thinking, because I was like, wait, that means this is going to be an incredibly sexual book, which it was. And then I was like, and I made Darian read it. And I know you don't like reading about, like, even, like, spicy romance stuff. So I was like, I feel like this is, like, literally the opposite of that. And I don't feel like it's going to be a good time. But then I saw that you rated it very highly, and I was like, okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
So other Whiners were read and stuff.
Listen. Whatever. Anyway, I was entertained by that.
How do you guys think, if you could change the book? Amanda, I'm sure there were a lot of things that you would like to change, but generally, if there was anything you want to change about the book, about, like, the way it ended, the way certain characters did certain things, is there anything that you guys would change or that you wish were in this book to make it a little bit more suited to your personal tastes?
I just wish there was a teacher who, like, gave a shit before Ms. Whitt came, who wasn't, like, intimidated by a bunch of students.
I think they were all, like, chased out of the school, though.
I still feel like you could, like, call a cop or, do something that might help the students. I don't know. I was just like, why does no teacher care at all? Like, teachers are supposed to care about their students. Yeah. So that's probably what I would change, because I know that was one of my biggest issues with the book, that the teachers were all just like, oh, that's, yeah. They're just like, all right. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, I agree, but also I think if there was a teacher who cared before her, then, like, I feel like there wouldn't really be a book. Like, then this stuff wouldn't really have happened. But it's pretty sad that, like, it took her to come after, like, all this time. That, I mean, I don't know how long this was going on for, but I think it was a while.
I think it was started by Jonah's brother, Jason, who was, like, 5 years older or something like that. Yeah. I think. So I think it was about 5 years or a little bit more, because I think Jason started it before he was a senior. So it would have been like...
Are we sure it was Jonah's, like, actual brother? Was it one of his just, like... Because they did, like, a brothers and sisters program there, where they were, like, mentoring, like, these, like, younger students. And I thought it was his mentor that started it. I didn't think it was his actual brother.
No, it was his brother, because they were saying, like, you have to carry on, like, the Bagman name. So Jason Bagman was his brother, and then Jonah Bagman was the guy we were following. And then there was, like, Bagman 2, which would have been, like, the second son.
Bagman.
Yeah.
That's kind of gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amanda, I'd like to unpublish this book. Amanda's like, keep it in the drafts. That's what I would have done.
Yeah,
like,
I think I would want a more positive portrayal of men, because why does it have to be such men are trash vibes? Like, I get men are trash, okay? I'm on board, but I also want to see better things.
Do you think, like, maybe if it had shown something of, like, maybe, like, in a year, as, like, new people came to school and, like, they started having relationships between, like, the same age of, like, freshmen for, like, boys and girls, and the fact that, like, it was developing in a healthy way, and it was, like, maybe, like, there was talk of a dark room, but no one really knew what they were talking about, and they were just like, oh, there's, like, a photography lab somewhere, but, like, that whole thing had been, like, eradicated from there, and they were just like, oh, there was a dorm and it burned down a long time ago, but we don't talk about it. But it was just somewhat, like, towards the path of, like, actual healthy relationships.
Yeah. Well,
or do you kind of feel like it went too far, that, like, it just isn't possible at Stonebridge?
I feel like it went so far to have a whole group of bad people. Like, I don't know, just why wasn't there just anyone good? Ugh, yeah. I don't know. But I think it's if a high schooler read this, like, I know it's in the adult section, but I feel like it's just such a a cynical way to look at things. Like such a bad way to look at relationships between, like, especially like when you're a teenager and you're thinking about your like future sex life or something. Like, to think about this in the way that this book portrays things, it's just like, is that gonna make girls think, I don't know, it's just like kind of cringy for me, but
This is why people need this book.
Sasha's like, I was ready.
she's like, I'm prepared.
This is a much better and a lot healthier depiction of like teens and what it's like to be like questioning and having thoughts about sex and safe sex and all of this stuff. So read it.
Yeah.
I think
May I interest you?
I also think the
definitely-
girls need, like, the girls in this book, like, they're gonna need extensive therapy to have any relationship after this.
Yeah.
And have any sexual relationship ever. And I just felt so icky about it because of that. And I feel personally victimized by this book.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel like if I read this when I was any younger, I don't know. I feel like definitely if I had read this when I was younger, I would be very scared. I feel like I've read like enough stuff that is like relatively like twisted and dark that now I really enjoy stuff that's very twisted and dark. So if there's like a sinister secret at a school and it ends up being pretty fucked up, then I'm like, cool. Because I feel like so often when I read books and they're like, it's a dark, twisted secret, then it's like very vanilla for me. So I don't feel like it's like it goes far enough. And this is definitely a case where I feel like it went pretty damn far because somebody died at the end of all this, but it wasn't as simple as just like a kid died and that's it. But it just like showed all the steps that led up to this.
Mhm.
And for me, I definitely feel like I like fall more in the category of like wanting darker things in my books. But if I were younger and I read this when I was like the age of these kids, which I probably shouldn't have because this is again like an adult section sort of book, but I think anywhere between like that age and a few years ago, I would not be able to sleep and think that I would have a future with anybody because it's just so scary to think of like how mistreated so many of these people were. And then also to think that like even a lot of the guys that were technically like good guys still went along with it. So it still gives you a feeling that you can't really trust them.
Mhm.
And still, even then, it's still only posing like a heterosexual relationship. But I also feel like for women to be rated on the way that like they look in any sense of the word also means that like to be fully intimate and naked with another human being is going to drudge up those ratings and like the way that they were made to feel. So I don't even feel like it's necessarily exclusively about being in a relationship with a man again after that, but it's just generally the idea of like your sense of self being somewhat robbed from you because you were like doing something that was very personal with one other person, and now they have made that public knowledge, which was partially why like when they were trying to bring girls in and say like let's do this thing, they said like we can't just post everything publicly because someone will figure out who each person is and then we'll just be kind of like publicly slandering everybody. What we should really do is like deliver these as a personal private thing, much like not like subtweeting and instead just like doing it in the DMs. Yeah, like, you know, doing those sort of things to sort of just personally do that for that person. So even though it is totally messed up, they can come to terms with that in their own space and decide who they tell about it, but it's not something that's public knowledge for everybody. But also this sort of brings something up. I was curious what you guys thought of characters like Rachel Rose and I think Hannah Wexall, her name is, but like some of the girls who like knew about the contest and they were just fine with it and they wanted to win the contest. Thoughts? Anything?
I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack there with like I don't even know like the fact that you're okay with that and you actually like it's the fact that you care that and you want to like do well is so like disturbing. I don't know.
And also
you wouldn't even know what they're like kids.
Yeah.
They probably want to impress because when you're a kid, you're like, am I going to be good? And, you know, like, I totally understand where they're coming from, because you know that's kind of like a popularity contest in a way, kind of like
It
how
is, yeah.
any high school is. They want to be like the best one, so they're the most popular, and that, yeah, definitely accurate for my high school experience.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there will always be some people who do things that as adults you would say like, I would never do that. But that's because you're an adult. And I think that when you're, you know, essentially a child, like you aren't yet at the age of 18, and even if you're at like the technical age of consent in Vermont, like they kept talking about, it doesn't really mean that you're like a full-fledged adult who can make the kind of rational decisions that you would make at an older age. There are always going to be people like that who do things that make a lot of sense to them at the time, and maybe later in their life they'll realize it doesn't really make sense and it was like a stupid contest. But also, like, we get to look back on those things because we're not in high school anymore. And I remember being in high school and how like everything was very intense about like people's social standings. Even if you're like, I don't care about that stuff, it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. So I can definitely see how, like, for this to be something that like the 10, especially like for all of those people who are just constantly talking with each other, to know that half of those people are in on something, and that you sort of have to kind of be like a pick-me girl, I guess, in a way, to like still be in with that crowd and to still be part of that popular group, and to know that everybody who sort of like falls by the wayside is still going to get talked about in this way anyway, so why not be at the top of the list and why not be the best of the best. I feel like it does allow for like a pretty interesting examination of those characters. I kind of wish that some of that was talked about a little bit more, because I also thought it was very weird that like Rachel was one of the characters who was like, oh, I'm gonna go find out like who's doing this stuff, and she would like play detective for the boys to go find out like who the shower terrorist was and stuff. And it was like, you're sort of like fighting for people who don't respect you. You know, like you're fighting for the boys to like help them figure this thing out, and why are you even doing any of this stuff? And I also found it very weird that she was like trying to make everybody think that she had slept with Ford by like leaving her scarf at his place all the time, and everybody would like see it and we're like, okay, like ha ha ha. But it was like sort of like, what are you trying to accomplish by doing this? But again, like looking back as an adult, it's sort of hard to like put yourself back into like the mindset that you had when you were younger and you didn't know any better. So I guess it's sort of that like forbidden romance type of thing that might have been appealing to girls back then, to think that like, oh, it's wonderful. And to know that also like the school had a history of stuff like that probably also led to like a lot of people discussing and like a lot of the gossip around certain teachers, which leads us to an interesting point, because like I was very surprised to find out, you know, between like Adam and Claude that happened in the first place, but also to know that Claude also had a history of like being with 2 different professors, I think, when she was a student at Stonebridge. And for like basically nothing to really come of it. So it definitely creates an entire atmosphere at the school that like a lot of scandalous things happen all the time, but not too much is going to change. But then things finally somewhat changed, I think. I think also like the dean having to resign and do things for optics was like an actual like first time someone like literally had to resign, who wasn't like forced off of campus by the boys or anything like that. So I don't know, does anyone have thoughts? I feel like I'm just summarizing what happened in the book, but I'm just like it was just like a very like shocking thing to me. I don't really know like how I feel about it, because it's hard to say like, oh, I like that this happened, because it was just very messed up. But it was just very surprising, and I guess in a story kind of sense to like set all that stuff up, I never would have like written that myself and predicted it, because it's not like a natural flow of plot points per se. But in a way, I guess it kind of makes sense. Although it also kind of seems like Claude had like a lot of problems already, and then with her mother dying and just feeling like she was descending into alcoholism, then she sort of ended up in the way that she did by committing suicide, which is also very sad, because I kind of wanted to see like the rest of her story. But it just sort of seemed like she couldn't really like take any of those pressures anymore, and that she was done being, I guess, like blackmailed for so long, you know?
Like, I mean, when I say, like, I find this is the kind of book that it's hard to say, like, how much I enjoyed it, because it's not like I was reading it and I was like, oh my god, I love hearing about all of this stuff going on. Like, I feel like everything that happened just made sense, like, with the way the story kind of established itself as, like, would this whole situation necessarily happen in real life? Maybe not. Like, it was a bit exaggerated, but I think, like, so many of these elements are things that happen in real life. And so everything that did happen, I was like, yeah, like, that makes sense to me. So, like, even the things that were, like, so horrible, like, I didn't enjoy it, like, I love this. But, like, I just thought it was so well written, and, like, the way, like, I really liked what she decided to do with the plot and everything. So, like, everything that we found out at the end and stuff, I was like, okay, like, that makes sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like the sense of satisfaction that's not like, oh, I'm happy because these people got abused and bad things happened,
Yeah.
but it's more like satisfying in the sense of like, yeah, real shit like this happens in real life all the time, but you know, for this to sort of be like a history that sticks with this school, and to see like this cycle gets repeated over and over again, means that it's setting us up to believe that like, oh, the same thing is going to happen again, and then breaking the cycle is very satisfying to see like how things finally change.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like for me, I did enjoy like every minute I read the book because I was very excited about like what was going on in the story, but it doesn't mean I enjoyed a lot of the things that happened in the book because they were very messed up and very bad. But I mean, I don't know if it's just like the personal attachment that I've had to this book because it was recommended to me and I just didn't read it for a long time. So it was always like something I looked out for all the time. And then finally reading it and being like, oh my God, it was so good. So that could be like a big part of my attachment to it. But I would definitely say like immaculate vibes. I personally really liked a lot of the characters that we were with a lot of the time. And again, sort of like the idea of like, here we are with the same old cycle and we finally break the cycle and it has a bunch of twisted, dark, mess up shit. For me, that is a 5-star read.
Yeah.
But I certainly understand like how a lot of this can be, you know, very cringy or like very gross to read about in general because it isn't a happy story at all. It's not like a wonderful happy story where everything turns out wonderful in the end, even when they're trying to like fix things. And I think everything's still like a little bit broken, but to me, I think that that's more realistic than things wrapping up and just being like, now we're all happy and we just go home to our happy families and it's okay. And I think like there could have been like probably a little bit more of that it still would have worked, but I kind of like the messaging that came across. And I also like the way that Whitt eventually was like, I'm going to teach fencing again. And in a way that like, I'm teaching people to like, stop hiding from the primal parts of themselves that want to fight, but to allow them to do it in sort of like this safer way.
I love that.
And I think it definitely like came full circle for that. Michael has a question for you, Darian.
I don't want to look at this. I saw it earlier. I was like, let's not. There's just so much about this. Michael, why? Why would you bring these things up?
Well, we are over an hour on our show, so I think it's probably about time to wrap things up. Is there anything anyone else wants to talk about, or any final thoughts on the book?
No. We stand high, Michael. Michael.
Michael.
That's all I have to say.
Michael says nothing but love, Darian. Nothing but love.
Thanks.
So, in conclusion, this was our live show for The Swallows. Hopefully, if you are still here and haven't read it, this either gave you an idea of if you should read it or if it's not for you. But if you do read it, we would love to hear from you. And we would also love to introduce what the next book is that we're reading, which will be on Sasha's channel because this is our May book. Sasha, do you want to introduce the book that you chose for the next Whiners discussion?
Sure. I chose The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And all I really know about it is that everyone seems to love it. And it is about two girls who are sisters. And they live in Paris, I believe, in World War II. So it is a historical fiction. And I've heard literally nothing but good things about it. So I'm really excited to discuss it with you guys this month.
I'm
So we will. So we will announce the official date of that show on our Twitter, which is linked in the. Is it? Maybe it's not linked in the description. It will be linked in the description in a minute. But you can follow us at the Whiners Book Club, and also please follow all of the hosts if you haven't already. Everyone is definitely linked in the description down below. And Lisa, we also can't wait to cry reading The Nightingale.
I'm ready
So
to sob.
Yes. I feel it. We're all gonna love it. It's gonna be great.
I really hope
5
I
stars
pick
only.
this one.
5 stars only.
Yeah.
But yes, that is basically it from us. So thank you for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy whatever it is that you're reading now. And we'll see you later. Bye.